Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Let's take stock of the global news flow. The markets largely were shut in the US, and Asia has a bit of a soft start, but European stocks did rebound at the start of 2023, though amid very thin holiday trade. Gold gains as IMF's global slowdown warning sparks the safe haven buying. Oil is steady as well. Demand concerns though dominate at the start of the year. And in India, active COVID cases declined to 2670. So much as there was a lot of talk about, and it may well turn out to be the case, I hope it doesn't, but there's a lot of chatter around how there'll be a big surge of COVID cases in India in the month of January. Thus far, it is not looking that bad, and which is actually a great sign. Really, we can do without these numbers, even if they don't lead to lockdowns or whatever it is. We rather don't want too many COVID cases. So, thus, so far, so good. Cross fingers for this to continue. Remember, as I said, the global markets were shut, the US markets at least in particular, and therefore, in terms of cues, you probably look at crude and gold as the, just that the point that I made that gold saw some buying and crude demand or crude prices are steady at the current point of time. So that's the long and short of what's happening in terms of cues. The SGX Nifty was flattish in trade as well when I saw it last, so don't expect too much of a movement there. Now, what's the trade setup there for in such a scenario? I think bulls would be hoping for the Nifty to clear a major resistance of 18,289. These are two or three technical experts who spoke about levels of this nature. So therefore, I'm bringing it up. Yesterday, metals on expected lines went up. We spoke about it as well in the trade setup that watch out for the metal stocks. And while metals did rise on expected lines, what surprised me was the kind of buying that we saw in the infrastructure names on Monday. Now, clearly, whether it is strong order books, whether it is cheap valuations, whether it's a combination of all of this, leading to the kind of buying that happened yesterday. But look at the space: NCC, Hindustan Construction, PNC, Infratech, IRB Infrastructure. Across the board, you had infrastructure names, road infrastructure or otherwise, NC really getting bought and trade. And that was quite a surprise element for me yesterday. But yeah, a lot of smart money got into it based on channel checks that I did. So we know that some really veteran investors have logged into the infrastructure names yesterday. They don't log in just for the 4 or 5% up move. So do watch out. There's something happening out there in that pocket. And I believe, arguably, the belief that there will be a capex, road capex, and otherwise, plus the valuations are not that expensive, might be the one that might be the reasons why there's such heavy buying that we saw in those stocks. Let's see if it continues. Consumption, though, came under a bit of a stick, really. Yesterday, too, you saw, stocks continued to grind lower. Page, Jubilant, Colgate, all of them made quarterly lows in trade yesterday. So quite that weak moves into some of the consumption names just somehow continue. Let's see if the earnings season also leads to a bit of a problem for them, or do the reduced input costs help these stocks combat the inflationary pressures and therefore come out good on the margin and the bottom line front. It'll be very interesting to see. So both volume growth as well as the bottom line numbers would be the ones that will arguably drive what these stocks could do in the month of January. Okay, what about stocks to watch in the session today? I thought that there won't be too many, but quite a bit of individual names. Maybe not large movers, but certainly likely movers in the session today. So Zomato is the first one off the block. Kunjan Patidar, the co-founder and chief technology officer of the company, is resigned due to undisclosed reasons. In isolation, this may look okay. If you look at the spate of resignations that have happened in Zomato at the co-founder level in the past 9 odd months, it's an unhealthy trend, if you will. But it may not do too much to the stock because these stocks have corrected quite a bit and the franchise still looks strong. But hey, from a stock per se sentiment perspective, it's not the most positive announcement. So watch out for that. Similarly for Birlasoft, in isolation, the CFO resigning could happen any day. But hey, we saw DK, who was the CEO, resign about 3 months back. Now the CFO has resigned due to personal reasons as well. Surely something that is not the best of news, you would have to argue. So let's see if Birlasoft has some reaction today or no. So these were the two resignation-based names. Then the quarterly updates. So NTPC, recorded generation of 295.4 BU during the April to December 2022 period, and which is a growth of 11.6%. Pretty strong numbers. Unfortunately, I don't have just the December number because they released April to December, didn't have the time to really isolate December per se from April to November. But the April to December number looks okay as well. And PSU somehow seem to be in the thick of things, so do watch out for NTPC today. Um, Banks, and there were two or three that came out with numbers. I brought you South Indian Bank, wherein the gross advances increased 18% to 7168. So it is something to be watched out for. But that notwithstanding, I think even if you look at some of the others, right? I mean, CSB Bank advances grew about 5.5%, 9.2% quarter-on-quarter growth in gold loans for CSB. Karnataka Bank advances grew about 12.4% and 4.4% QOQ. Like I said, I mean, in South Indian Bank, for example, I mean, if you just look at what the deposit growth was versus what the advances growth are, I mean, lagging quite significantly. The question is, are NIMs topping out for them? So these are a few things that you've got to keep in mind when it comes to the banking updates um, in the month gone by, for the quarter gone by. By the way, Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services was the other one that came out with its quarterly update as well, and there too, I mean, uh, you know, so the Jeffries note was interesting on MMFSL, and just hear me out on this one. The disbursement growth was of 22%. Business assets rose about 20% for Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services. Asset quality seasonally improves in third quarter, as per Jeffries, and the collection efficiency was stable at 95%. So you can't find too many faults with MMFSL numbers as well in the quarter, but still brokerages largely remain underweight. So that's the interesting piece. But watch out, might be active in the session today, MMFSL. So BFSI, uh, CSB Bank, Karnataka Bank, South Indian Bank, Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services, all of these four remain in focus today. MOIL, they registered an 18% sequential increase at about 1.41 lakh tons and 91% increase in sales at 1.64 lakh tons in 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 December 2022. So pretty strong number by MOIL uh, in the month of December. Then VMart, the Q3 FY23 store additions update was not the strongest. It opened about 15 new and closed 6 stores, so net only 9 in third quarter. The total store count at 414 as of December. They might still be on track for meeting the annual target, so therefore you got to keep that big picture in mind. But the Q3 store addition number wasn't the strongest, and that puts a bit of pressure on the company for quarter four for meeting its annual target. So do watch out for MeMart if it has a negative reaction. If it does, I'm not saying it will, but if it does, you will know why. Speaking of infrastructure project, companies continue to gain. PSP Projects won a project for construction of a high-rise office building in Surat Municipal Corporation. So therefore, in the city of Surat, for about 1364 crores. So I think this one is a bit of good news for PSP as well. So do watch out for this one as well. Uh, by the way, speaking of banks, a lot of people are mentioning this. I mean, but I doubt that RBI saying that SBI, HDFC Bank, and ICICI Bank are systemically important banks means too much to the fortunes of these banks. But I may be wrong. So if the stocks react today, if they do, you know why it's happening. I don't think that this is the reason for the stocks to react, to be honest. But I may be wrong. Lastly, speaking of recommendations, one MK Quant has a note on Colgate Palmolive. They're saying a short trade looks attractive with entry at about 1535, 1540, a stop loss above 1575, and a target of 1475. Because the stock broke below a strong horizontal support level of 1550, and the RSI has been falling for 4 days and currently stands at 34, suggesting more downside room ahead. Do watch out. It's a MK recommendation, viewers. But if you indeed follow some of these brokerages, or if you believe that because I'm bringing it, it might be a strong one, yes, I think their rationale seems solid and their calls have been right. But please, if you're trading, do trade with a stop loss and standard disclaimer. It's a brokerage recommendation that we're bringing to you. We have nothing to do with it. It's not a BQ Prime recommendation. So please keep that at the back of your mind. There's also a note from Jeffries on Piramal Pharma. They're initiating coverage with a bullish undertone. So that's the other one from a brokerage perspective that you may want to watch out for in the session today. Yeah, initiate with a buy call. The target on Piramal Pharma is 150. They believe the CDMO business is on a cusp of a turnaround. So that's something you want to watch out for as far as the pharma pack is going. Remember, pharma was the only sector to end in the red yesterday. Almost every other sector did well. So pharma clearly has some headwinds to itself. Okay, at least for the time being. Things could be changing at the ground level. And tomorrow we'll be talking to Samit Vartak about this. He's an ace investor and a sharp mind when it comes to pharmaceuticals, chemicals, etc. So that is something that might be interesting. But for today, the long and short is the bank updates and the BFSI updates rather, because MNM Financial as well. The two resignations, key resignations from a Zomato and a Birlasoft, so tech-led resignations, and some business updates beyond banks in the terms of Moil or a VMart could be interesting. But do watch out for infrastructure as well. Like I said, a bunch of fairly smart investors apparently have logged into some of these names. So that's an interesting pocket to monitor. Thank you so much for tuning into the trade setup today. Have a safe day.